First off, we've got Aurelie, who, along with a colleague of ours, started MYKKO, which is a cruelty-free leather alternative made out of mushrooms.
So hi everyone, thank you for turning up. I'm a student at the Royal College of Art, so I'm finishing my master's in fashion women's wear. I've been a biodesigner for quite a while now, and I did my BA in Edinburgh. And that's where I started working in the science lab for making textiles, basically. And when I left, I did work in the fashion industry for a little bit before doing my master's, and I realized that wasn't really for me. So I decided to create my own studio and be a little bit bold with it, and actually just starting my own almost practice as a couture designer. And I focus on sustainability and circular practices as well. So essentially, MYKKO was born during a residency I did at OpenCell, which is you could call it a biotech hub in London. Some of you might be familiar with it, some of you might not, but it's a very interesting place where basically most of the companies that work there do biofabrication or biomedical stuff. So it's very interesting. So I met my co-founder there, Ashley, who is specialized in mycomaterial and mushrooms in general. So he also has a background as a designer. So we're both coming from product and fashion. And we just decided to, challenge the industry that we're working in and say, could you actually have a plant-based leather that's, 100% biodegradable and home compostable? So that's the background for this story. And about the competition, I was drawn to apply during my first year of my master's. So I'm imagining some of you are still in education as well, or might have just graduated. But I think it's always a good time to almost test your ideas and have a feel for it in terms of, is my idea viable, business-wise? So we applied for the competition. It was really interesting because we did have some help with, pitching from Mark, who you might meet later on if you apply to the competition. And that was super interesting as well. And we got some tips on how to make pitches, videos. Obviously, it was during the Corona as well, so it was online. I think my experience is probably very different from the past winners who had to pitch in a live event in London.
Okay, you've been selected as finalist. You've been given the prize, and then what exactly happened after that? Like what's been the step from winning to where you are now with MYKKO?
Yeah, so it was really good because during the competition, while we were pitching, and obviously there was a little bit of a delay because we won a little bit later, but we had some contacts, people just getting in touch, being super interested, and one of the jury members from the panel for the competition actually decided to become our mentor. And it's very good for us because she works in the fashion industry. So I would say that even if we had not won, she probably would have gotten in touch anyway. So I would say that even if you don't win or you don't get past, the final stage, you never know who's seeing your work and who's looking at your ideas and seeing a potential. So that would be maybe one of the first thing I'd like to say. Since we won, we actually got really good support from the government because we applied for, schemes like UK Innovate, things like that. And at the moment, we're building partnerships with bigger brands. And the award from the London Mayor Entrepreneur from the creative industries has been instrumental in convincing people that our idea is interesting and has a viability, because it is a very good way to measure your first steps in terms of success. And the cash prize is also super instrumental for young startups. If you want some updates, we're actually in the middle of filing a patent for our technology, so we're super excited. And other things include the incubator at my college, which is called Innovation RCA, because I'm studying at the Royal College of Art. So that's also something we'll do next year. So I would probably advise people, like, if you win or even if you don't win, keep looking out for these opportunities, because we actually got so much better at pitching, and that's how we got all these different other things that came afterwards.
So you wanted a sustainable alternative to leather, from what I understood. Did you already know which material to use when presenting your idea to the competition, or did you research and develop the idea afterwards with your mentor?
I want to be super honest here, because there might be some idea from people who would like to apply that you have to have everything ready down to a T, you know, but actually we did have the material, we did a pilot test, so we knew how to make it, but we didn't have all of the technology that went behind it ready. And that's why I think it's super important to stress that you can actually go into a competition like that and not have, you know, everything super polished and you know, all your systems, your business plan. We had pretty much none of these, except for the idea and the material that was in a very raw format, I want to say, because you're essentially getting that money to develop it further. And that's something that's super interesting. You kind of need to learn how to sell your idea and what the potential is for it in a bigger kind of context, because it doesn't mean that if you have everything ready, someone will be interested in it. You have to learn how to sell it as well.
All right, thank you. So do you have any tips on making your application stand out? And you said you learned a lot more about pitching, so maybe you could say a bit more about that?
Yeah, in terms of application, when you do the written application, which is the first step, I would really think about what is your unique selling point. Have a really good overview of your competitors, people who are doing the same thing, because the first question that people will ask you, mostly the jury members and things like that, they will ask you what makes you different from the others, and how can you do it better. Because it's about being, you know, critical about what you see in your own industry. And it's very easy to start with, you know, I've got the best leather alternative in the world, when it's actually not true. And some people have done much more research and much more work before you.
About the pitching,
Yeah.
what do you think is like the most important thing to know?
The pitching, I think, definitely like have confidence in what you're talking about, because if you are not genuinely convinced about it, that will show in the pitch, and you can almost you know, not deliver your pitch perfectly, but if you have it well organized and prepped and rehearsed, that's the best way to go. Obviously, for the competition, we did two things. We did a recorded pitch in a video, and then we did a live pitch. It's two different things. I think for the video, plan it super carefully, have it ready, practice it like you're doing a live pitch, because if you don't know your text, it's just going to show on camera as well. So you have to be as natural as possible. And then for the live pitch, I would say that try to keep it as lively, engaging, super convinced about what you're talking about. And if you have any, you know, kind of Q&A that puts you in a rough spot, try to have something to get back with, but almost not taking it personally when someone asks you a question. Just always be humble, but mindful that, you know, you probably know the answer as well.
Did you have a full business plan or a financial strategy or anything like that?
For the mayors, no, we didn't, because that was not really a part of the requirement. There is something about the business and financial side of things, like how you're going to use the grant, or you know, what do you intend to, you know, purchase or spend it on. So I would definitely be mindful of that. Have a little kind of idea of what are the most important things that you could pay for right now with this grant that would make you go a little bit faster. I would think that polishing a business plan, it always evolves. So having, depending on where your product is at as well, because obviously for us, it's a technology that's in research and development. If you have a product that's ready to market, definitely have a business plan. Include like things like route to market, your sales channels, things like that. Because the more detailed you are, and I think the more credible you're going to look to other people.
But are you comfortable sharing any mistakes that you made, or like things that you definitely think everyone else should avoid now that you've been through the competition?
Yeah, I think that we were a little bit maybe not as organized in terms of the pitch that we did the videos. It was good because it flowed, but it wasn't specific enough or even conveying our idea, because we have a very complex technology. So that's the problem when you try to pitch that type of stuff. You don't want to go into the jargon and you know, bore everyone with the details. But at the same time, I think we were really close to being a little bit too abstract. So, and I saw a lot of, maybe they can talk about it later, but the other winners had a really good pitch where they were explaining, okay, this is how our product is, you know, how it works in real life, what you can do with it. We had someone demonstrating the product as well. So that didn't apply to us, and I wish it did, but that was that. And in terms of other things, I think we did have some questions from the jury that from the panel that wasn't really, we didn't prepare. So I think that maybe, well, you'll have advice from Mark, hopefully, but maybe try to see every single weakness in your project. And that's a very hard thing to do, because you have to sit down and say, okay, we do really well with this, but we're not really excelling at this. And just, you know, force yourself to look at the weaknesses. And I think that we could have done a little bit more of that.
Okay, would you recommend maybe asking people around you for feedback and kind of, you know, asking them to see what the mistakes are if you can't see it for yourself? Because it is definitely very difficult, I think, to distance yourself from your product so much.
Yeah, so I would say it depends on the formation of your business, of your startup. If you have co-founders or people you're working with, definitely run anything by them, because it might not be their area of expertise, but they will always have an idea. And if you're, for instance, having ethical dilemmas and things like that, always kind of question yourself, am I just selling this too much, or is it something that I should reel in, because it's not really who we are. Try to be as honest with yourself so that your project is honest with people as well.